Today I'm going to be adjusting the overhead cams on this Cummins ISX 400. I'll be adjusting the injector rocker, intake and exhaust valves, and the engine brake. This is the intake rocker and the valve bridge. What I'm setting is the space between the rocker and the bridge. Before you adjust any valves or injectors, you need the engine turned over to the A position, lined up with this mark. There's an A etched into the balancer. So that means cylinder 1 is at top dead center, and both these rockers are level, so there'll be a little bit of play in each one, and they'll be somewhat level. And if both don't have any, if only one has play and the other doesn't, then that means you need to roll over to A again, complete revolution, because there's A1 and A2. So I have this on A1. Now I can adjust my valves. To do that, I need feeler gauges and my intake needs to be set at 14 thousandths. So I got my 14 thousandths feeler gauge. Alright, to adjust the valve, I need to loosen this lock nut so I can tighten the adjusting screw. Then I need an Allen key for the adjusting screw and a 14 thousandths feeler gauge. Just want to slide the feeler gauge underneath the rocker. And tighten the adjusting screw to where I have some side-to-side play, but no, I can't move the feeler back and forth underneath. It needs to be snug against the feeler, but still have side-to-side play. So I'm going to tighten it a little bit more. It's good to go. So I'm going to get 13mm wrench, 19, sorry. And tighten my lock nut without letting my adjuster screw move. Alright, pull the feeler gauge out, and that's the intake valve. Now we're going to set our exhaust valve. The exhaust calls for 27 thousandths. So I'm going to pull out my 27 thousandths feeler gauge. Now I'm going to go over to our exhaust valve, loosen the lock nut, loosen the adjusting screw, slide our feeler gauge underneath. Now tighten the adjusting screw. Snug against the feeler. Alright, snug, so tighten my lock nut. Keep the adjusting screw in place when you tighten the lock nut. Pull your feeler gauge out, and that's the exhaust valve. Alright, now that we have our valve set, we're going to move on to the injector. I got my lock nut loose. The injector needs to be torqued to 71 inch-pounds. So I got an inch-pounds torque wrench and an Allen key. And you're going to want to make a reference mark like that, and then a mark when you hit 71 inch-pounds. You mark where that lined up with your reference mark. Then you need to back off, come back around to 71. Alright, my mark's gone, so I'm going to put another mark. Alright, I made a new mark right there. So I need to back off half a turn, come back, .71. Make sure my line is lined up. It is. Gonna do that 3 times. Come back around. This is number 2. 71. Lined up. One more time. We're going to tighten our lock nut down. And we're good to go. That's how you do the injectors. Now we're going to be setting our engine brake. This is the engine brake rocker. Just like all the others, we have a lock nut and an adjusting screw. You're going to need a size 3 Allen key and a 13mm wrench. Start by loosening the lock nut. Loosen the adjusting screw. Give yourself some room to fit your feeler gauges. It calls for 276 thousandths. What I had to do is add up my feeler gauges to 276 thousandths. As you can see, it adds up perfectly. So I can use this to measure the gap between the engine brake piston and the bridge. So, I'm gonna lift up the engine brake rocker, slide my feeler gauges underneath. I have some play there, so I need to tighten up my adjusting screw till I can't barely move my feeler gauges anymore. Should be snug. Just snug, not too tight. You still want some side-to-side play, but you don't want to be able to take the feeler gauge out. Feels good, so I'm gonna slide the wrench on. Make sure your adjustment stays in place while you tighten the lock nut. Lock nut's tight, we're ready to go. And that's how you do the engine brake.